Here we go on an election night, Tuesday, live in the upstate. This is First and Tim. Wherever you may be, however you may be listening, Spotify, YouTube channel. So much happening, trade rumors in the NBA. Will OBJ become a Cowboy? A lot of movie pieces. It's good to be back. I had a lot of things going on, not feeling good, funeral, so it's good to be back with you guys. Alright, so let's start with this. Listen, I'm watching Lamar Jackson last night. Look, pay him already. The number one quality of a franchise quarterback is when your team isn't right, he can carry you to a win. So the best tight end in football, or at least the second best, Mark Andrews. Ravens not available with their best receiver out in a week. Receiving corps. The defense has holes on the back. And oh yes, Monday Night Football is the loudest road venue in the league. And Lamar Jackson barely broke a sweat. Completed passes to 10 different people. Huge on third down. And this is what it looks like. This is a franchise quarterback. It's different. It's unique. People can't get their arms around it, but it's incredibly special. And if you're constantly, as a fan, look, you're constantly blaming yourself because you have a quarterback and you're not sure if he's a franchise quarterback. And I've said this before, but you're constantly blaming the receivers and the coordinator and the offensive line and the lack of running game. You don't have him, and that's what the Giants are doing, and the Jets are doing, and the Commanders are doing, and the Lions are doing, and Carolina is doing. They're blaming other people. Lamar Jackson goes on the road, one of the toughest Monday Night Football environments, doesn't have a world-class tight end as the best receiver, and a bad receiving core, and a defense that can be very susceptible, and Andy Dalton looked like a flip phone. And Lamar Jackson looked like the latest iPhone. I mean, it was just special, fast, unique. They're down. He was amazing. I'm looking down. 14 rushing first downs, 9 for 15 on third down, no turnover, 38 minutes time of possession. And the Saints knew they were going to run the ball, but there's no big stick right there. I mean, here's the best receiver anybody in the stadium, including the fans, who are all lubricated. Everybody knew Baltimore was going to run. They still couldn't stop it. And last night was a great example of what has happened to this league. And it changes fast. What has happened to this league? Because of the rule changes. And because of now many of the great high school athletes are because of the rule change. And because now many of the great high school athletes are allowed to be quarterback. Why not? They get to know you. That's the only position, you touch the ball 60 times a game. Is that your quarterback? He has to have some juice, something different, something unique. I mean, Andy Dalton looked like a 2011 quarterback. And by the way, 10 or 11 years ago, Andy Dalton was fine as a franchise quarterback. Look at him now. I wasn't born yet, but he looks like something out of 1970. Look at Matt Ryan. Look at Jared Goff. Now, that classic pocket passer, it will not do. It is not good enough. You've got to have juice, and even John Harbaugh has been at every Lamar practice, every game, seen every piece of film on him, and even he was taken back by Lamar Jackson last night.
I do not take it for granted. I was shaking my head. I think I said wow a couple times. I mean, I don't know how, I couldn't see how he got out of one late. On the other side of the field there. I mean, how did he get out of that one? I thought Lamar plays on a different level. You can't just look at passing stats. The passing stats are good, but he made some plays. He made some third down conversions. Third down was a key in this game. We did a great job in offense, and Lamar was really the driver of that.
Surely, just if you want to watch the game with the sound down, and you just see Lamar's running all over the field, and people, and he's doing without arguably the best tight end, and the best receiver party, and a bad receiver on the road, it just drives off the struggle with Lamar Jackson. And all have said the same thing. He's 75% of his start. Well, he can't get to Super Bowl. Well, with Dan Marino never won one, but ask Dolphin fans. Those good days in Miami, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, they have two between each other. Those are pretty good days. What you don't want to do is drive to the ballpark or to the stadium and have a huge deficit 15 weeks a year at quarterback with Lamar and that sauce and that juice. You've got a shot to win every game when you're missing your top pieces. Okay, so we all know the Cowboys had a bye week a couple weeks ago. They came off last week with Detroit. Um, Jerry Jones, you can tell how he's trying to manifest with stuff, with everything else going around the league. He's speaking to Aaron Rodgers. He's trying to manifest stories that Dallas could be leading on OBJ and Jerry Jones. Guess what? He talked about it this morning on the radio.
No doubt is someone that we have all the appreciation in the world for what he is as a competitor. I know that as a Cowboy star on that helmet, when he puts it on, could look pretty good.
I mean, you got to be humble in this league. Ask the Rams. Ask Aaron Rodgers. It turns on you very, very quickly. And I'll be honest, I know you think I'm anti-Aaron, and I'm not doing a whole spiel on Aaron Rodgers and the Packers and what they've got going on. But I'm not really. He just wears me out. You know, the league's better when he's great, but I'm going to be rooting for Mike McCarthy this weekend. And, you know, I think it'll be emotional. You know, McCarthy's facing his old Packer team. Clearly, it's not the same as he was there, but I mean, Greg Olson, I think he made it clear and he summarized the drama with Green Bay.
So now picture yourself, you're Mike McCarthy, you get sent out of town, you get thrown to the wolves, you take all the heat publicly, and then all Green Bay does is win since Matt LaFleur takes over in your seat, right? 13-3. It seems like they win 13 games every year. And now, finally, it matches up. He takes all the heat in the offseason. Sean Payton's taking his job. Everybody in the world's taking his job. He's now got one of the favorites in the NFC going back to Green Bay, as you mentioned, against a wounded Green Bay team that's reeling. It couldn't have lined up better if you're Mike McCarthy after all these years, after being let go from Green Bay.
Well said. Okay, so tons of people have asked me all this kind of stuff. I mean, what was that yesterday in Indianapolis? The Colts fired Frank Reich. I think he's a really good coach. I think he'll get a job. Look, when it comes down to the end of the season, there's going to be 8 vacancies, at least for head coach position. I think he'll get a job. He does very well. But the very impulsive Jim Irsay, the owner, now is calling the shots. And I think that's always a problem. And we've seen this with Dan Snyder and the Commanders. It just doesn't work out. Clearly, the Colts owner, Jim Irsay, he held a press conference yesterday. It was scheduled for 6 Eastern, and they pushed it back to 8 Eastern. So it basically began the same time as Monday Night Football, and they were hoping nobody would watch it. And it was a little bit of a rambling. You ever go to the grocery store, and they tell you never go to the grocery store when you're hungry, and you end up like with beef jerky or Red Bull, garlic bread, some bananas, pasta, and Fruit Loops. Like, don't go to the grocery store when you're starving. This was Jim Irsay going to the microphone when he had a lot of energy, a lot on his mind, when you're not quite sure what's coming up next, and you're not quite sure you're okay with him saying it. But what he was saying is, you know, he hired Jeff Saturday, former player. He's never been a coach, and it's hard to coach in this league. That's why, you know, 25% of the coaches get fired every year. And of the many Irsay comments that you'll hear in this segment, I mean, it went over an hour. And here's one of the comments, one of the gems.
Now, I'm glad he doesn't have any NFL experience. I'm glad he hasn't learned the fear that's in this league. That's because it's tough for our coaches. They're afraid. They go to analytics, and it gets difficult. I mean, he doesn't have all that. He doesn't have that fear, and there was no other candidate. We were fortunate that he was available, and he has tons of experience. He knows this game inside and out, with relationships with coaches and players, and has been a consultant for us for several years.
All right. consultants are not coaches. Analytics, that's not a bad thing. So let's just start with that. There were probably other people available. And I've heard Jeff Saturday, ESPN, Get Up, First Take, all that stuff. He's been on there. It seems like he knows what he's talking about. But that feels like a bunch of rambling. And I don't agree that he was with a consultant. Um, Here he goes again.
You want to bet against this guy? Put your money down, people. Love to see it. Love to see it. You know, because I know what he's about, and so does Chris. And yes, there's a maturation curve. Shula was 32 years old. He had 3 nondescript years with the Detroit Lions before he took over the reins in 1963. No, the game is not different. We don't build rockets to go to Mars. We're not nuclear scientists. That is none of our jobs here. It's a very simple jobs that we do here. We cultivate winning cultures. We cultivate toughness. We live by our integrity about the people that we are. And we don't expect anything more than we expect from ourselves.
It's a simple job. Look, I would never have it. I know what people tell me. I know what people listen to. I do a lot of reading. Simple job. Andy Reid got fired. So did Bill Belichick. It's not an easy job. Pittsburgh Steelers are one of the few teams, maybe the only one, other than the Patriots, that have hired a coach, and they stick with him for a couple decades. But a lot of fans in Pittsburgh aren't happy with their current coach. Yeah, it's not rocket scientists. You know? I'm not saying that coaches are rocket scientists. You know, or either talk show hosts, you know, people that we listen to on ESPN and First Take and FS1, you know, but they have to sit there for 3 hours, and they're probably exhausted by the end of every show. I mean, you got to know what it's like, you know, and it's not like they're running SpaceX or NASA, but it's not easy. It's really hard. Let's not marginalize how hard it is to run franchises. How many Super Bowls do the Colts have? And that's with Peyton Manning and with Andrew Luck. Do we have another one? Is there another one? Okay. Yeah, this is the last one because this guy's just...
I don't know how to make sausage. I don't know what goes into sausage. But I do know how to build a football team because I've been around for 52 years. And from all the people from Paul Brown to Don Shula to sitting with Ted Marshall-Broden and understanding what you do during a week for preparation, I understand that. And I understand that he's fully capable of doing this and more than capable, and that no, it wasn't offered to anyone else. And you know, I don't know Chris and I what we would have done, if anything, if he wasn't available and willing.
Listen, Colts have a lot of issues. One of the things going for them is a really shrewd general manager. But this league, you now need a star quarterback, a star left tackle, a star edge rusher, a couple of star weapons on the outside, maybe a great corner. The culture is good in a lot of places. Those areas are not the places. They're great, and there's great teams. Like, you know, the Buffaloes and the Kansas Cities. I think the San Franciscos, the Cincinnatis are really good, and Baltimore. They've got a lot of star in those places. They got a lot of salary cap. You know, Colts, they had salary cap issues because of Matt Ryan's contract, and they truthfully got trapped and had to go get Matt Ryan because there wasn't much out there, and you know, and Irsay wanted Carson Wentz gone. This is a bit of a mess. There was a lot of rambling, and that was just going to the grocery store starving. And I feel like today the Colts have some, you know, cookies and cereal and a little fruit and paper towels and some garlic bread. And you can't make a meal with that stuff. And right now, they're not a very good meal. They're not a very good football team. So the latest on Josh Allen, according to Ian Rappaport, he's reporting that Josh Allen is likely to be limited this week due to that UCL injury that's in his throwing elbow. Now, it's not a season-ending injury, right? But nothing like that they just don't know, and they're keeping it as quiet as possible. They're not saying much. You really can't gamble on this game outside of Vegas, which says a lot. But I mean, they usually get the inside information, and so Ian Rappaport says that it may not cause him to miss any time. But I'm going to point out this. I just looked this up. Okay, Josh Allen has thrown 4 interceptions in the last 5 quarters. Remember, 2 late that were against the Packers, and those 2 were in the fourth quarter, and then 2 against the Jets. Hasn't looked particularly sharp. Now, Allen's backup is Case Keenum. And yes, he has been a journeyman for like 17 seasons, including for, oh, wait for it, the Minnesota Vikings, who they're playing this weekend. So, Case Keenum, he took them to the NFC title game. They got smashed, but, I still like Minnesota this week, anyways. I think it'll be a good game. So, the Hollywood horror, I like to call it. Okay, we talked about trade rumors. So, the story with the Utah Jazz, who we thought were tanking, and the Lakers last night. Oh, the Lakers lost. Now they're 2-8, third worst team in the NBA. But the tanking Jazz, there's so much basketball talent. I kind of enjoy this time of year because the NBA, and then you got basketball um, college basketball just started. The season started, so I like watching basketball on television, and it's really fascinating. And we thought the Jazz were sort of this soft tanking to get some of these great players coming in the draft, and now they've hammered the Lakers, the veteran Lakers, twice in the last few days. And Utah has a boatload of picks over the next several years. They've got some nice young talent. Marketing for Colin Sexton. They've got this kid Walker Kessler. I would love to be Utah for the next half decade. It's going to be so much fun. So they've got so much youth. They got a coach from the Popovich tree. They got Danny Ainge, just smart GM that always has a plan. And the hated Lakers never seem to have a plan, and they have a strategy. And the strategy is, okay, well, let's go overpay for aging stars. So it does feel a little bit like Utah's playing chess and the Lakers are playing Connect Four. I honestly think if I was the Lakers at this point, I would sit down with LeBron, closed door meeting, and Rich Paul, and I'd say, okay, the season. I'd say first, A, the season's over. B, we're gonna move Anthony Davis. We want to give you a heads up, and then C, are you okay with that? Because if not, we may move you. The franchise has no plan. They occasionally have a strategy, and it's generally not being able to see around corners. So if you start looking at a business, the smartest people in business can generally see problems before they happen, right? That's how you avoid the mess. That's what good presidents do. That's what what good politicians do. So, well, Anthony Davis peaked at 24. He had a great bubble year at 26, but he's been declining ever since. And now the Lakers, they've got a slow mover off the bench, trapped with Westbrook, bouncing around the league. Kind of stubborn, rigid player. I mean, he's played good the last couple of games, but now he'll come off the bench, I guess, for the time being. But it feels like they're trapped with him, and it's sort of the classic Lakers over the last 10 years. They always feel like they can't see problems before they end up in their lap. And then here's Utah, that soft tanking to get one of the 2 or 3 stars in the draft, and they're winning. And they're right now in the West. I mean, I think they're the number 1 team in the West right now, and they've clobbered the Lakers twice in the last several days. So listen, after they beat them last night, just listen to the difference between the Jazz after the game and the Lakers after the game.
I think our guys have really bought in to that style of play and that thought process, and they're playing with just a lot of passion and joy out there. The ball's flying around. They're happy for each other. Everybody gets to touch it, and nobody feels like they're not included in the game. They have to step up, have that confidence, and play better. And those are just the real facets of our game. We can't go out. We're a tax offender, right? We just can't go out and start spending money everywhere to build a team. We have 3 big-time future Hall of Fame, first ballot future Hall of Famers that a chunk of our budget is being spent on, and there's only so much left.
team has joy and chemistry and ascending and young. They like playing together. I mean, if you watch some of the highlights of last night's game, moving the ball around, and Utah plays those guys like each other, totally unselfish. Everybody touches the ball. LeBron didn't play. Anthony Davis won't talk to the media. Westbrook is unhappy off the bench. I mean, totally two different organizations. Who would you want to be? The LA team or the Utah club? That's soft tanking. I think it'd be great to be a Jazz fan the next half decade. Be just fantastic. That's what sports about you going to be part of the build, like what Cleveland has right now with the Cavs. You're going to be part of this great build. You're overachieving. You look up. Utah is the story of the year in the league. It's incredible. We thought they gave away all their players. We thought they wanted to get the number one pick, and look at them. Look at their play. It's amazing now over the course of the season how good they're going to be. But it's amazing what happens when nobody wants to take credit. And a basketball, nobody wants to take credit on on the basketball floor, and that's Utah. So, do you think the front office is happy that they're 9-3? Because we know in a playoff series they're going to go against anybody in the West, and they're not going to have the first or second best player, and they're probably going to get swept or lose 41. So, if you're in the front office of the Jazz, are you kind of like, or how about that we could maybe go get the number one pick, or we have a bunch of picks, our players all played really well together, and we can cobble together 4 picks and 3 players and get the number 1 or the number 2 pick. I mean, if I have a full roster of guys playing well together and you overachieve, you can move those players because you may privately. Not a lot, like Sexton, but Colin Sexton's had a great year, and somebody needs a point guard and a third and 3 number 1 picks, they'll take it. Just know that in the NBA you want to be at the top or at the very bottom. You don't want to be in the middle. That's like the worst place to be, because you'll be drafting like 70, and then you'll have a lot of draft picks, and this is a deal making league, and I saw the highlights with Utah, and I'm just like, okay, how much fun is it like a college team? You got a little old guy, like Conley, and then you go get all these young guys. And I mean, Conley's been around the league for a long time. He's a total pro. He would look good on some NBA teams that need a backup point guard, for the post-run season. So I don't think these people get talked enough. And the Seahawks. Okay, so listen, Pete Carroll and the Seahawks, they're feeling pretty good. They got dumped on for a couple of years for the Russell Wilson stuff, and myself included thought Russell wasn't being held by their by their defense and lousy draft picks, and I still think that's the defense got really bad last 4 or 5 years. But Pete took another kind of jab at Russell Wilson after they had another victory. He said, Geno Smith going off the wristband, which is a big help, smooth things out, spent things up, clean things up. We never did that before. There was a resistance to do, and that was what we didn't do it before, and they're feeling like themselves. I will say this, though, is that the NFL's a copycat league. So there's been mixed results on ditching a star quarterback. Detroit traded Stafford. They're not the same team. New England lost Brady. They're not the same team. Atlanta moved off Matt Ryan. They were bad last several years. They're not great, now. And then now in Seattle, they moved off Russell Wilson, got a buttload of picks, and now they're way better. And it's a copycat league. Generally speaking, don't move off a star quarterback. But again, Seattle did what you want about Russ. He's a star quarterback, and they're better today, and perhaps better for it in the long run. They've got good defensive players. This running back, Kenneth Walker III from Michigan State, is tearing up the run game. They're not going away anytime soon. I can see them as a sleeper in the West. So, all right. So it is voting night. I hope you guys went and voted. It's always important to voice your opinion, like I do on the sports here. But listen, politicians, Politics change. Hey, look. Sometimes it's my guys. Sometimes it's your morons on that left side of the table. But this is America. However you like it or not. Hope you guys went out and voted. So that's it for First and Tim. The playoff committee is putting their take on the college football playoff rankings tonight. Watch my Facebook page for my picks and takes. I'll see you back here tomorrow with college football talk. Remember, you can always follow me on Spotify, Twitter, no blue check, First and Tim, and you can watch on my YouTube channel.